Good evening, everyone. You know, sometimes the most important questions in life are the ones we quietly carry but rarely stop to truly face. I want everyone to ask themselves these questions. Who has shaped my life, and who am I becoming thanks to them? Now think, do these questions have a clear answer? I want to try something with you. Close your eyes for a moment. Think about a story that stayed. It can be a movie, a book, even a character from a game. Now think, what did this story teach me about who I am? You can open your eyes now. Whether you realize it or not, each and every person in this room just entered their own Cemetery of Forgotten Books. The Cemetery of Forgotten Books is a secret library hidden in Barcelona where forgotten or abandoned stories are kept so they are never truly lost. Each visitor must choose one story and promise to protect it and share it and read it. Well, the questions you just ask yourself don't have a simple answer, and I'm sure they're not supposed to. We spend so much time moving forward looking for what's next, when in reality, we never stop to think about how we got to where we are today or the influences that brought us here, shaping us along the way. The truth is, we're all shaped by stories. Stories we read, stories we hear, stories we tell ourselves. Every song, every book, and every movie leaves something behind. An idea, a value, and even a question. And without knowing, we start becoming someone new, a new version of ourselves. Sometimes it is hard to notice light changes. However, for me, Carlos Ruiz Zafón opened a new door, a new world filled with stories left to unravel. Through them, I became conscious about the person who I wanted to become. This place is a mystery, Daniel, a sanctuary. Every book, every volume you see here has a soul. The soul of the person who wrote it, and the soul of those who read it, lived it, and dreamed with it. The Shadow of the Wind, Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I'm sure most of us have read at least one book growing up. For many, that was the Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Now, I don't know if it was really that interesting or just easy to read, but I remember everyone loved it. As we grow older, many of us drift apart from reading and start having new interests. Some move on and never look back. Others, at some point, find their way back, not because they had to, but because they were looking for something. And I was one of those people. As we grow older, reading becomes a choice instead of an obligation. I can't say this for certain, but adulthood brings questions that our younger selves rarely ask. Questions about meaning, purpose, and identity. Being honest, I didn't enjoy reading at first. About 2 years ago, I was so bored that even my phone stopped entertaining me. And that's when I picked up a book. I read a few novels, but eventually went back to my phone. Until one day, I had nothing to read and ended up in my sister's room, where in one of the shelves I saw The Prisoner of Heaven by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. It was the shortest book in a series I had sworn never to read, because who reads novels that range from 600 to 900 pages? I started it anyway, understanding almost nothing. There are characters that had a whole backstory I didn't even know about, and yet I couldn't stop. I read most of it in one sitting until my father walked in and told me that I should start from the beginning with The Shadow of the Wind. He told me it was only 300 pages long. It wasn't. It was 600 pages. I was complaining how it was a slow, boring story full of useless words. But somewhere along the way, that's changed. I lost track of time, reading up till 3 a.m., carrying the book everywhere. I gave these books a chance, and by doing so, I gave myself a chance to get to know myself better through them. Each book after this challenged me differently. Some bored me. Some made me question their ending. And at some point, I felt like giving up. But something kept me reading, figuring out what I enjoyed and what not so much. I finished the first 3 books knowing I wouldn't read the last one. To my own surprise, I read the last book, The Labyrinth of Spirits. It was one where I had to keep pushing myself, wanting to know its ending, needing to know the fate of the characters that at this point felt like my fate itself. I finished the book, closed it, took a deep breath, and began crying uncontrollably. At first, I couldn't understand why. But then it hit me. Those 4 books changed my life. They made me question who I was, who I wanted to become, and what my purpose in life was. I didn't want the story to end, not because of the plot, but because it felt like losing a part of myself. I always thought that magic in those books was found within its mysteries. However, the real magic was that they didn't resolve my uncertainty. They made me brave enough to face it. As of today, I don't just remember the cemetery of forgotten books. I carry it within me. It is a part of me that doubts, wonders, and questions everything. The part of me that is no longer afraid of uncertainty, because I learned that sometimes the most important things are found in a labyrinth, not at the exit. In literary theory, there is something called context of reception. This means that a story isn't full on page, it is completed by the reader. A book read by two different people becomes two different experiences. You may ask why. Because each reader brings their own memories, values, and unanswered questions into reading a book. And that is why a single sentence can change someone's life, but mean nothing to somebody else. Maya Angelou once said a phrase that struck with me. Words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes a human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning. This captures the idea that stories are not complete until someone feels them, speaks them, and connects to them. I want to try a small experiment with you. I'll read you a really short story. A boy walks into a library every day after school. He sits in the same chair, reads quietly, and leaves without talking to anyone. One day, he stops coming. The librarian wonders why. Some of you thought the boy was lonely. Many others that he was escaping something at home, or he simply loved books, and many more thought something else. Same story, same words, completely different meanings. And that is what literary theory calls context of reception. Now, literature has many branches, each with its own focus and each with its own charm. Even people who say they don't like literature still engage with it. For example, through music. We all listen to music, and within every song, there is a story carried by words, rhythm, and sound. We don't often analyze them. We feel them, dance to them, or sing along. But think about the last song that gave you chills. Let's test this idea together. Think of a song that instantly reminds you of a moment. Does it remind you of a person? Or does it remind you of a place? Or it can be both. The song didn't change, the lyrics didn't change, but you did. We usually replay a song because of the comfort of predictability and because our brain links it to a strong memory. In that sense, music is storytelling and makes us part of the story the way a book does. Poetry, on the other hand, gives figurative meaning to life. It helps us understand voices and emotions that can't always be explained literally. Being honest, I don't understand it all the time. Shakespeare still gives me headaches and will probably continue to. But I learned that sometimes we need to see life from a different point of view, figuratively instead of literally. Shakespeare didn't stop with sonnets. He also wrote plays. And as he said, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. If plays are not your thing, maybe films are. Movies are the most literal form of literature. Images, dialogue, music, all combined. And every time you cry to The Notebook or to Titanic, it reminds me that literature goes beyond emotions. It is about the meaning each of us gives it, and it is a clear example of how context of reception works. Now, people often describe reading as an escape from reality, but I disagree. Most people confuse escaping with immersing. When we read, we're immersing ourselves in a story, in a character's story. A book doesn't distract us from who we are. It removes the noise that keeps us from hearing ourselves. A story that can help us process life more effectively and even transform the way we approach it. Literature doesn't change the world. It changes the reader, and the reader can change the world. Now, stories don't give answers, because that would be the end of the journey. Instead, they return us to ourselves. Changed, wandering, conscious. And in that sense, they give us something even more essential: empathy. When we read, we're living inside stories that are not our own, think thoughts we would never think, feel fears we've never faced, and understand choices we would never make. Empathy is not built through instruction. It is built through experience. When we read, we live inside stories that are not our own, and we begin to see that each person has an inner world as complex and as fragile as our own. And once we start seeing it, we cannot stop seeing it. Now, after this tech talk, when you arrive home, try to pick up a book that calls you. Begin reading it, and instead of asking, what is this book about? Ask yourself, what did it make me feel? Or, where did I recognize myself in this? Now, before you start reading, ask yourself the hardest questions of all. Who do I want to be? When you finish the book, ask yourself the same questions and compare your answers. You'll see how they change. It might be a slight change, but there is one, meaning you have changed. Safon left me wondering instead of asking new questions instead of answering the ones I already had. So I want to leave you with a question, not about reading, but about you. Who are you when no one is watching, and where did you first meet this version of yourself? Because maybe that unseen version of you was shaped by a story, a moment that stayed, a character who understood you, a moment that felt like a mirror. And that is why we read, and why stories matter so much. So, don't forget, stories don't end when the book is closed. They continue in us. Thank you.